everyone, to this special presentation here on the Seattle channel. I'm Brian Callanan, a public affairs host. Very glad to have you with us for a city budget discussion. I am joined by Mayor Katie Wilson and our City Budget Director, Aly Pennucci. Great to have you both here.
Great to be here, Brian.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
I'm glad we're able to set this up. The mayor actually asked the Seattle channel to set this up. If you're watching on Seattle channel live, if you're watching on YouTube live, thank you for joining us. If you're watching the recorded version of it, good to have you too. We're live in the Norm B. Rice room in City Hall. So our focus today is the city budget, which our viewing audience may know is facing a series of challenges, including a multi-million-dollar deficit. Mayor Wilson, if you could center up the conversation for us, because usually the budget is something the city deals with a little bit later in the year. The mayor submits a budget, the council deals with it. By about Thanksgiving time, we have that finalized budget. Why here? Why now?
Yeah, great question. So Brian, we're here now because, as you mentioned, the city of Seattle, like many cities around the country, right now is facing a very large budget deficit. And as you mentioned, like normally this is something that we would be discussing in the fall. Because of the magnitude of this deficit, what we do about it is going to have real impacts for Seattle residents. And so it's very important that we begin a public discussion about this right now, just because we need to make those decisions in a way that is bringing the public along so that people really understand what's at stake and so that our decisions are able to be informed by what we learn from the public.
Okay, thank you for that. And just a rundown for this hour-long program here, folks. We'll have a presentation about where we are and how we got here. Director Pennucci will be breaking that down for us. And that'll take about 15 minutes. I'll be asking some clarifying questions along the way. And for the remainder of the hour, I am asking the mayor a series of questions that people have sent in on social media or via email. I have not told the mayor the questions I'm going to ask here. I hope she's ready for that. And we're asking you to send in more questions, if you could, for the rest of the hour. Email mayor@seattle.gov. Please use the phrase budget question in the subject line there. The mayor's office is forwarding these messages directly to me. I'll get in as many questions as I can. We will not get to them all, but the ones we don't get to, I'll make sure the mayor's office will figure out how they're going to respond to that. So two things to remember here. We are focused on the city budget for this hour, and we are looking for questions and comments that help us keep that focus. The kind of comments that don't really meet that standard would be, "You need to resign," Vicky on Instagram, thanks for sending that in. "I'm glad that I moved away from Seattle," Kobe on Facebook, gotcha. Also, "boo," with 3, 4, 5, 6 O's after the B there. A comment on Instagram there, either they are upset with what you're doing, Mayor, or they're being haunted, tough to say. So you're of course free to email and say whatever you would like. I just want to make sure that people know it's my job to try to keep the focus of this conversation, and that's what I'm going to try to do. That does not mean I'm not going to ask some hard questions. There are plenty of them, and thanks to everybody who is sending those in. Director Pennucci, can you start us off and this presentation you have? Let's break it down.
That sounds good. Thanks again for having us here today. We thought we'd start the conversation by just getting us sort of grounded as what is in our city budget. And as budget director, I love an opportunity to talk about the city budget whenever we have whenever we're invited to do so. So
and you've got a PowerPoint too, so let me know where you want to go with those slides.
So I have a couple of slides. I'll kind of speak to them, but please stop me if you have questions or if I can clarify something. Sometimes I get a little too excited about the wonky details of the budget. But I think I'll start with I guess not the cover slide, the second slide. It's a pie chart that this is just a snapshot of our 2026 adopted budget.
And let's take a look at that PowerPoint right there at the second slide here so we can show people what's going on. Please
That
continue.
Sounds great. So this slide represents our entire city budget. Our budget is about $8.9 billion. That sounds big. The majority of that budget is restricted in its uses. A big chunk of that are funds that support our utilities, funds that are paid from builders who are through permit fees, our transportation fees. Those dollars can only be used for those specific uses. We're going to spend most of the time today talking about the city's general fund. That is our unrestricted operating fund, and it supports most of the services that you hear people talking about day in and day out. It supports our public safety functions, our homeless services, those sorts of things. That is where we are facing the most critical challenge. As I stepped into this role, thanks to Mayor Wilson for inviting me to take on this position. And so I just wanted to highlight, well, it's almost a $9 billion budget. Where we spend the most time focusing is $2 billion. That's the money that funds many of the critical services that touch people's lives every day. So if we could move on to the next slide, that pie chart represented sort of the different colors of money as we talk about. The next slide is a bar chart that shows over the years where those dollars are going in the city's general fund. So this bar chart is just representing that $2 billion in 2026 that has increased over time. And we organize our budget in 6 sort of service categories. The blue at the bottom, the lighter blue at the bottom of the bars shows our public safety investment. That includes investments in our fire department, our police department, our law department, the city attorney's office. And then the darker blue is education and human services. The bulk of that is human services because most of our Department of Education and Early Learning is funding through a restricted education levy specifically.
Dark blues administration.
Oh, sorry, dark blues administration. The brown is education.
Oh, there we go.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank
Sorry.
you. Yep.
And so this just represents sort of the categories of spending and how that has changed over the time. And part of sort of as we're talking about the challenges our general fund is facing, you can see our budget has grown over time, but it hasn't grown to the needs of our community and the growth of our community. So when you think about how did we get here, there's a lot of compounding factors that led us here.
Tell me about some if you could. I know inflation's a piece of this.
Yeah,
I know our growing population and more people needing services.
That's right. Inflation is a big piece. And we had, prior to 2018, we had a period of sort of unprecedented growth where we were seeing major development, more people moving to the city. And while that growth did bring with it some growth in revenues, not to the scale that was needed to address the income gap that was sort of compounded by that extensive period of growth. Then comes the pandemic, right? We saw rapid revenue decreases as well as historic high inflations. All of those things are contributing to the cost of providing services to the community that are needed have outpaced how much revenue is brought in annually. And that is also combined with changes in the federal government and state funding structure. So we are grappling with a number of sort of overlapping issues all at the same time that makes it challenging to maintain our services.
Just looking at the general fund, though, it's increased quite a bit over the past decade. We're talking about maybe a little over $1 billion in 2016 to close to $2 billion now. A 79% increase, if I'm doing my math correctly there. And is that what we're talking about here? That seems rather large. I know a lot of people think that. And is it mainly inflation? I mean, it sounds like there's a number of factors here.
There's a combination of inflation as well as policy decisions to address the scale of the challenges. So, for example, coming out of during the pandemic and coming out of that, we really changed the way that we deliver homeless services. Through that experience, I think we all learned a lot. And the type of, like, for example, shelter we provide and the types of services that are really necessary to support people moving from homelessness into permanent housing has shifted. It is more expensive. And so some of that is reflected in this. Also the cost of delivering public safety services and all of those things. So it is a combination of factors. Our services are delivered primarily by people, right? Most of the city's general fund, about half of it, goes to our city workers, and a lot of the rest of it goes out to organizations who are delivering services throughout the community.
Got it.
They are also people who live and experience in the city, so the costs for them to be able to live in the city have increased. So it's a combination of things.
Okay, all right. Thank you. I want to make sure you get back to your presentation.
Yeah, so if we move, so that's sort of a snapshot of the city budget. And so when we talk about the challenges we're facing, you'll often hear me talking about facing a structural deficit.
Yeah, can we look at that next slide, folks? I want to make sure that we take a look at this. There's a red line that's moving through there. Help us explain what we're looking at there, please.
Yeah, and so what this is on the bars are showing our revenues, our general fund revenues, and then the red line is showing expenditures. And as you look to the year 2027 and are projected, you can see there is a gap between the bar and the line. That is the structural deficit we were talking about. So that line is representing in order for us to maintain services to the community that we are delivering today, we have a gap of about $148 million, or we did when we adopted the budget in November. We were projecting we had about $148 million gap. So that is what we call, and as it projects over years, it kind of fluctuates. But that is what we call a structural deficit, where we are seeing our ongoing costs outpacing our ongoing revenues.
Does it mean the city is spending beyond its means? I know a lot of people have asked me that question.
I think that what it represents is that, again, I don't think it's spending beyond the means. We're delivering services that people need, and the costs of those services are more than our property taxes, our sales taxes, all the fees that support the city are not growing. Part of that is because of the constraints based on state law. There are restrictions. Our property taxes only increase by 1% annually.
They're not tied to inflation, that's right.
Yeah, and as you all know, living in the world, our costs inflation has significantly outpaced 1%. So that makes it hard to sort of keep up and maintain the services. But when we look at the budget, it is hard to find, not that there are certainly areas that we can be more efficient and refine and work on looking at outcomes, and that's certainly something the mayor and I have talked a lot about, and it's something she is asking me to work on over my time as budget director. But overall, all of these dollars matter to someone that are going out the door. It's delivering a service, it's providing access to a class or that sort of thing that matters to someone. And so I don't think it's that we're overspending, it's that the needs are cost more than our revenues can support right now.
Got it. And in terms of how the budget has been balanced, because the city is required to do that, in terms of how it's been balanced over the years, can you talk about that piece, or am I jumping ahead there, Director Pennucci? I wanted to make sure I talked about kind of how that's been done over the past few years. It has been done, but I think there's been a reliance on a lot of one-time funding, which makes it challenging.
That's right. So sort of early in the pandemic, a lot of it was through the development of the Jumpstart payroll expense tax, combined with some one-time federal funds, as well as looking at our fund balances and that sort of thing. That's really when the problem became most acute, and we really started to see every year this projected deficit. Over the last several years, we've been operating in what I've been calling triage budgeting, where we're just kind of patching together solutions one time, but we're not really addressing the ongoing challenges.
There's been adjustments in the payroll expense tax.
How much of the payroll expense tax is used to support general fund functions versus the housing investments in housing and Green New Deal and economic resilience,
which it was originally set up to do.
Which it was, and yes. I had the opportunity to work with Mayor Wilson on that prior to this.
That's right. Before she was elected. That's right.
Before this, and so that's it. But for the Jumpstart payroll expense tax, we would be in a much more difficult position. You can see on this chart the gray areas.
And let's look at that page 4 one more time so you can show people what you're talking about.
Yeah.
This is a really good example of what you mean. Please go ahead.
Yeah, and so this is showing that right now in this current year and moving forward, we are assuming about $200 million from the Jumpstart payroll expense tax is being used to balance our general fund. And so I know that while the mayor and I would love to fully restore that fund back to its original purposes, we'd be facing a $400 million deficit right now. So that is a challenge we are all facing.
And can you touch on the fact that the payroll expense tax can be volatile? It's tied to how many employees are making over a certain threshold there, and that number can change, and the amount that they're actually getting paid can change. Can you touch on that piece, because I think that's an important part of this too? Those revenues are actually declining from the payroll expense tax.
Yeah, our most recent forecast showed a decline in the Jumpstart tax, and in part that volatility. It's the number of workers making over a certain amount, but it's also its total compensation.
Right.
So volatility in the stock market can impact that revenue source. So it is less predictable and stable than a property tax can be.
Got it. Thank you. I want you to keep going. I didn't mean to interrupt over much
there.
No,
that's okay. The next slide I think I already spoke to, but I just wanted to make sure we were defining
Let's do it. Yeah, let's talk about page 5 of your presentation here so we can make sure we get that up for folks. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so this is just really defining when we talk about a structural budget deficit. There have been periods of time in the city's budget where there was a sudden downturn and there was a deficit projected, but it was sort of a 1 or 2 year problem, and then things kind of rebounded. What we are really talking about is a long-term mismatch between our cost of providing services and the revenues we are bringing in, and it requires really to address it a permanent revenue increase and or spending reductions. And what we've really been talking about is it needs to be both, right? We need to have all options on the table, and we really have to look at strategies to stabilize our budget where our ongoing revenues match our ongoing expenses. And why is that so important? It gives certainty to our community who relies on services the city provides every day. It gives certainty to the providers out in the community that we fund, that they know, every year they're not sort of wondering whether or not they can continue to operate, and our city workforce. So it's really important that we look for long-term permanent solutions versus these one-off approaches that, while they get us through year over year, it sort of distracts from doing the harder, longer-term work that we want to do of really how to get the best value out of every dollar.
And the thing that I would add to that is that just the size of the deficit that we're looking at now, like again, the only reason why it's $150 to $200 million instead of 400 is because of the transfer from Jumpstart that we have started doing year after year. So it's really just at the size where even if we wanted to paper it over with one-time fixes, we're kind of out of tools.
Yeah.
Got it. And I was just trying to figure out why that was happening over the past several years. I'm sure you've been talking about having more stable revenue and more stable taxes, et cetera, over the past several years here, but why has that not happened? I think that's a question I've heard from a few people too.
Why has what not happened?
Why are we in the structural piece? Why are we continually going towards these one-time solutions?
Yeah, and so I think Aly spoke to this a little bit, but the way that I look at it, this problem to some extent predated the pandemic. But the pandemic is really what accelerated us into this structural deficit. And part of that is that high inflation, everything getting more expensive. And as Aly mentioned, we have this state cap on our property tax increases. So anytime that inflation outpaces 1%, there's a structural gap that opens up year after year. And we have had multiple years of high inflation where everything that the city buys gets more expensive. And that includes, what we have to pay our city workers who, as Aly mentioned, live in our high cost region. And so all of their costs of living have been going up too. And the other thing that I will mention that I think is really key is just the way that the pandemic and the extraordinary stresses that it produced created great needs, right? It made our homelessness crisis much, much worse. It created high levels of food insecurity. And so those needs have not gone away since the pandemic. Like, we are still seeing heightened need for food assistance. We are seeing heightened need for rental assistance, for homelessness services. And so the kind of federal, one-time pandemic relief has gone away, but those needs are still, like this. So there's just the money that we have to spend depends on the scale of the problems that the city is called upon to solve, and those problems are getting bigger and bigger. And I think that is really why you see that even though we have this very specific issue here in Seattle and Washington State with our state property tax law, other cities around the country are facing very large deficits because they are in the same situation we are coming out of the pandemic. And the other thing I'll mention is just that we're also in the current moment seeing a lot of added insecurity brought on by the federal government, right? We are seeing heightened food insecurity. We are seeing, people losing medical benefits, and all of that adds to what cities, which are really, we're like the last line of defense for people, for our communities, and so
I know
we have to
the
step
federal
up.
Funding for homelessness, that's
Absolutely.
going to be coming in
Yeah.
the next couple of weeks here, and that could
Yeah.
be reduced and changed. I've gotten a few questions about that too.
Yeah.
Director Pennucci, did you have anything else you wanted to add? I wanted to make sure I looked at all the wonderful PowerPoint slides that you put together.
I think the final or the penultimate slide is really just showing what we are projecting today, which
And
is
let's
just
look at that slide number 6 so we
Number
can make
6.
sure people are seeing it at home. So this is what we're talking about.
Yeah, and this is just my team's current projection. And I will say, this is dynamic. It changes when we get an inflation update, a forecast, that sort of thing. But today we are projecting going into 2027 about $175 million deficit. So that is the work we are doing right now. So I would say, because as Mayor Wilson said, the scale of the problem, we want to make sure we are communicating about what the challenges are. And I think being really transparent about how we are thinking about it and bringing people along earlier, so we're not waiting until the fall to have these conversations.
Got it. And Mayor Wilson, I think I'll start turning more questions to you here if I could, and please jump in wherever you need to, but I want to make sure that we get into some of the questions that people have here, but maybe I can ask that overarching question to start. We're talking about cuts, we're talking about ads. Can you talk about, if you can, a general approach that you're going to try to take to the budget process that you have to get into here very soon, it sounds like?
Yeah, and this is really why we're starting so early. In dealing with a budget deficit of this size, we have two options. We have new revenue and we have cuts. When we look at new revenue, as you may know, I've been a big proponent of progressive revenue, and so we're definitely looking at all of the options that we have. And at the same time, we also know that, honestly, I don't see any scenario where we're able to come up with $175 million of new revenue this year. So I think we are also looking at some scale of cuts.
Could you come up with $175 million worth of cuts?
That is a terrifying prospect. And I think that goes back to the breakdown of the general fund that Director Pennucci gave us, which is that that $2 billion general fund, about half of it is our public safety departments. That is also our funding for homelessness services. And I'm the first to say that we need to do better at how we are spending the funding that we spend on homelessness. But there is no world in which we need less funding for homelessness, right? If we're going to address the thousands of folks sleeping unsheltered on our streets, we need to spend that money as effectively as possible. But if we are cutting it, we are in a bad place. So the prospect of making cuts that deep, it is really hard to see how we could do that in a way that does not impact our response to the homelessness crisis, which we are trying to do better and better at, and our public safety system. And that is something that I think no one wants to see.
Thank you very much for that. I'm going to get to some of the different questions that people have sent in. And if you would like to send in another question, please do it. mayor@seattle.gov is the email address. Again, we'll be taking these in over the next just about half hour or so here, because we want to make sure we answer as many of these as we can. We won't be able to get to them all, but we'll make sure the mayor's office gets all of those emails and responds to them in some way. So I've got one that came in on Instagram here. Rich wanted to know this. He made this comment, I should say. Your budget shortfall would be addressed if you could attract retail businesses back into downtown. So many storefronts and corners are closed. This would create jobs and generate sales tax revenue. I don't understand why this isn't a priority. It would put you in a position to have the resources to tackle your other priorities. Some thoughts about this?
Yeah, I would say that economic revitalization of our downtown core and of neighborhoods around the city is a very high priority. And absolutely, right? We want Seattle to be a great place to do business, to live, to work, to raise a family, because that is our tax base. And so that's something that my office is working really closely with our Office of Economic Development, with the Downtown Seattle Association, with lots of stakeholders in the community, because we do need to. There's glimmers of hope, right? We've got a great waterfront. We're seeing a lot of visitors to Seattle. So there's I think we're turning a corner, but we absolutely need to double down and make sure that we are investing in downtown Seattle and making that a great place to be.
Got it. With regard to that, a number of people were asking some questions online here about bigger businesses in the city of Seattle. Bart had this question on Facebook. Will you be laughing some more at Starbucks for shutting down its headquarters and the negative impact that we have on all the small businesses in the area? And are you still encouraging people to boycott Starbucks? Daniel threw in the fact that, through this point I should say, the state of the city budget is going to look a whole lot worse thanks to Mayor Wilson chasing out businesses like Starbucks. Of course, there was that recent event at Seattle U. You had said, I think the claims that millionaires are going to leave our state are overblown, and if the ones that leave buy, a lot of people had some issues with that. Do you regret what you said there, or tell me about that? Well,
I'll just say that I think that everyone wants to see real meaningful progress on the big challenges that we're facing in this city. Homelessness, top among them. And one of the things that I was really excited about to announce this week is that we are moving forward with our second new large tiny house village site.
Right.
And that is actually being done in partnership with Challenge Seattle, including Starbucks, including T-Mobile, including Microsoft, including, I don't want to leave anyone out, John Stanton and Terry Gillespie, right? So that is philanthropic support where the city is partnering with them to fund this intervention into our homelessness crisis. So I believe that the city's collaboration with our large corporations to address these problems is very important, and we're doing it.
Do you think you are pushing big businesses out of Seattle, though? I've heard that from a few people here. Robert asked on Facebook, is she going to say bye to more millionaires, billionaires, and corporations as that tax-based revenue leaves the state? I think people have concerns about this. As popular as it is on the ballot for people to say tax the rich, I think there are some businesses that are saying, wait a minute, and maybe they're speaking with their pocketbooks, moving out of here, things of that nature. How do you respond to that piece?
So I'm really proud of the work that I did and that Aly did and that many others did to pass the Jumpstart payroll expense tax back in 2020. And as Director Pennucci mentioned,
yes.
Without that major progressive revenue source, which yes is a tax on large corporations, with a high-paid workforce, we would have been in a world of hurt during the pandemic. And this is also what has been floating the city budget, basically for the last 5 years. So I'm really proud of that work. I do think it's a problem, and I've stated this publicly many times, when Seattle's kind of business environment, tax environment gets very out of step with our neighboring jurisdictions, including Bellevue, right? And so that is something that, as we're looking at addressing this structural budget deficit, we're going to be taking into account, right? And when we look at our revenue options, yes, one option is to dial up Jumpstart, right? And no options are off the table because we don't have any great options, right? Also, I don't think it's good that it is less expensive to do business in Bellevue than in Seattle, and so we're going to be taking that into consideration.
Can you talk about some of the different progressive revenue ideas that are out there? I don't know if it's too early or not, but we've got that Jumpstart tax, the payroll expense tax. Is there a wealth tax in the offing? Is there a capital gains tax, perhaps, which I know the state has and the Supreme Court has upheld? What are you considering there, I guess?
Yeah, I think part of the challenge of the moment that we're in is that there is not a silver bullet, right? There is not some major progressive revenue, untapped progressive revenue source that we know is practically implementable on this timeline, legally airtight, that we can just pass and it's going to plug this budget hole. That does not exist. There are options, and we are, our team is hard at work studying those options. I think capital gains tax is absolutely on the table. The challenge with the capital gains tax is, there are some technical challenges with we really need cooperation from the state in terms of how we collect that. But the bigger one is just that realistically the revenue that we would be raising through that is not huge, right? It's probably in the low double digits. And so that is that could be a small part of the solution, but that does not fill our budget gap. So there are some other options that we're working on, but there's no silver bullet, which is why we're definitely going to be looking at a balanced approach where we're both looking for new revenue and we are going to have to make cuts.
Thanks. And in terms of the places potentially you could make cuts, Jen had a question on Instagram. What are your plans to eliminate fraud over and above the $13 million unaccounted for taxpayer dollars within homeless programs? Jen, I believe, is referring to what's going on at the King County Regional Homelessness Authority. A big issue there. There was an audit in April that showed it had $13 million unaccounted for, about $40 million in the red for a $205 million agency there. Talk to me about the potential of fraud, your concerns about that. I know Jen has a concern about that. Other people do too.
Yeah, so, and just to be clear, the King County Regional Homelessness Authority, Seattle sends a lot of money their way. That is not Seattle. And I will say that in the work that we are doing right now to accelerate new emergency housing and shelter in Seattle, we are doing that in-house, partly because I have some very serious concerns and questions about KCRHA's ability to effectively steward public funds.
And let me throw in, just to make sure that we're clear, the audit that was done didn't find direct evidence of fraud.
Correct.
And it's important to point that out.
Absolutely.
But there's a lot of concern
there
around that.
There are a lot of concerns, and I absolutely share those concerns, which is partly why we are doing our homelessness work in-house. So leaving that aside, because that is a whole thing that, the future of that agency. But in terms of Seattle, our Human Services Department actually about 10 years ago went through, we did not have issues at that scale, but I think some concerns were raised, and so there's actually been a lot of work done at the city over the last 10 years with our Human Services Department in particular to institute really strong financial controls. So I have a high degree of confidence in our ability at the city to steward public funds in the course of delivering homelessness services.
Got it.
At the same time, I will say that We've directed our city departments to model 5% and 10% cuts, and we're going to embark on a longer-term project of really assessing all of the programs and services that the city is funding, because I really believe, like, just the fact that we started funding something at some point in the past, like, maybe times have changed and maybe this is not a program that actually is the best use of our funds, and we need to be assessing that as we go along. We can't just let the fact that we started funding something at some point be a reason to fund it indefinitely. And so we are going to be taking a really hard look at our city budget, at our city spending over the course of my term, and making some hard decisions about our priorities.
I know you said you want to leave it, but I feel like I need to ask it. With the King County Regional Homelessness Authority, you've got a county council member that's saying dissolve this. You've got a city council member in Maritza Rivera saying she wants it dissolved too. What's your position on that? Should the city stop funding the KCRHA? Should that agency be dissolved? What are your thoughts?
So this is an ongoing conversation. And I will say that, so we have taken some immediate steps to safeguard public funds. And we are, like, my highest priority moving forward is, as we make those decisions about the future of that agency, all options are on the table, is what I have said publicly, and that is, like, absolutely the case. What I want to be careful about is making sure that we are maintaining continuity of services, and that we are able to do that for the service providers, because the thing that we don't want is for this thing to crumble in a way that makes our homelessness problem 10 times worse. So I just want to go through this in a deliberate way, and as a member of the governing board of the KCRHA, I am going to be following our process, but all options are on the table.
Got it, thank you. With regard to what the city is spending on homelessness, what the county is spending on it too, Rick sent in a question via Facebook. If not combined with strict mandatory service requirements, new shelter space will not significantly decrease street-level crime, as most individuals will simply refuse services and continue to engage in illegal activities. I always hesitate to conflate the idea that crime equals homelessness, but there's definitely some overlay there. Talk to me about this, because this idea of requiring people to actually get service of some nature, I think that's a question that a lot of people have. Why isn't that required? Why aren't we requiring that to make sure that these homeless services are delivered?
Yeah, I mean, for me, and I feel like we're getting a little far afield from the budget questions, but
just what we're spending, I think, is where he was.
Yeah, no, totally. That. I mean, for me, this is not kind of a political question. This is a question about doing what works, and so we have, we have models in Seattle that have proven to be very, very successful at, for example, resolving encampments, right, unsheltered homelessness, and getting people inside, people who have been, chronically homeless for a long time, who have complex needs related to substance use disorder, mental illness, and getting them the services that they need. So we are really trying to learn from best practices, the things that have been proven to work, and then to scale those approaches up. And it's complicated, right? And so, like, yes, there is there is an overlap between our public safety issues and our crisis of unsheltered homelessness. There is a very legitimate role for law enforcement to play in this as well. And so we are working with our public safety departments and with our service providers to really figure that out. And for me, again, this is a matter of really following what works. And so we try something, we look at what's working, we adjust, and we're going to get there.
Thank you. Question from Matt. Thanks for writing in from Capitol Hill. Appreciate that there. Here's his question. The question I've been wondering about has to do with the Seattle Police Department's budget. In recent years, it seems like SPD has been getting an increasingly large part of the city budget pie. However, the details of how they are spending this money are not available to the public. Will you support an audit and public accounting of the police department's spending? A concern here, the officers got a 13% raise towards the end of last year. Can you talk about that piece and what's going on with the SPD, how things are spent? Would you support an audit of the SPD budget?
Yeah, well, SPD is one of our city departments, and so we've also been working, and maybe Aly can speak to this, but we've been working very closely with them to really try to understand, and we'll continue to do work to try to understand all of the ins and outs of their budget to make sure that we are spending that money and actually getting the public safety that we need from it. And and there's a lot of complex operational questions there and questions, having to do with the police contract. But I will just say, yeah, I mean, I do believe, and, vast majority of the SPD budget is just officer salaries or, personnel salaries. And so we're doing that work, in cooperation with Chief Barnes and the other leadership at SPD to try to figure out how we can use the force that we have as effectively as possible to, get the outcomes, the public safety outcomes that we want for Seattle residents. And that's going to be an ongoing project as well. So there's work to do everywhere.
Okay,
yeah, and
please.
I would say alongside, the reason why it is so important that we look for a sort of sustainable way to balance the general fund in this first year, and we're working really hard to try to come up with longer term solutions, is so we have the time to really dig in and be able to improve transparency, not just for SPD's budget, but for the entire budget. We already have budget tools online and available that talk about the budget, but to really be able to dig into those answers, my team needs time to work with the mayor's office and all of our city departments to really evaluate not just what we're spending on, but how we present that information and report on outcomes to the public. And so addressing the structural problem should free up some time and space to do that work.
Got it. Thank you. Another question coming in from Melissa related to public safety here. Mayor Wilson, you are currently facing criticism for your decision to pause the CCTV pilot program, so closed circuit TV, with many of your campaign supporters and even staff saying that your actions do not go far enough and that you need to end the program entirely. While this has been framed as a public safety issue, it is a budget issue. Half the general fund goes to policing. SPD is already deeply invested in the technologies here. I guess the point that I'm trying to bring across, or just shorten things a little bit here, Melissa, thank you very much for writing in here. I think her question is, I'm seeing it here, will you take a deeper look into the city's contracts with Axon, which provides some of this tech work here, to investigate potential predatory pricing? I think she has a lot of concerns, it sounds like, about what's going on with CCTV and the money spent there, and a number of concerns about what it means for public safety if it has an effect on public safety.
Yeah, and that is really why right now we are doing an evaluation of the CCTV and real-time crime center programs, right? So there's both the kind of like data security audit that we are doing, but then there's also just this evaluation of that whole pilot program that is trying to get at what are actually the outcomes that we're getting, like how is this technology being used to solve crimes, what are its impacts, and this is really important to really understand, like, yeah, what is the value of this program given what we are spending on it, right, from that budget point of view. We're spending in the kind of single-digit millions per year on that program, so this is not something at the scale that is going to solve our budget problem.
For a $9 billion budget for the city, I understand. Yeah.
Right, but even our, in the context of a $175 million shortfall, right, we're talking about like $5 million a year, something like that. And really, I mean, I think part of the argument for having a kind of surveillance technology like this is that ideally it kind of pays for itself in the way that it frees up police capacity because of the way that it makes it easier to respond to and solve certain kinds of crimes. So that is part of what I'm hoping the evaluation will get at, so that we can really assess whether this is a good use of public funds.
Thank you. And Melissa, thanks for these questions. She actually had another one I'm going to add on here if I can. Will you commit to auditing and cutting the bloated SPD budget and instead investing in effective community-based solutions for public safety? A question about changing how public safety is funded here and where those dollars need to go.
Yeah, and that's kind of similar to the previous question. And so, yes, we are going to be, I don't know about a formal audit, but we're digging into SPD budget to really understand like how we can work with the department to make, that budget go further. Yeah, so that's
okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll just say the mayor asked or directed me to ask all departments to model, as she said, 5 and 10% cuts. That was every department, and what
including SPD.
Including SPD, and to if we were just to do a across the board cut to solve the deficit, we are looking at about 10% cuts to all departments. But part of what we're asking departments to do is to provide options, but also help us understand the impacts of those cuts to the community. And so we are in a process of generating idea and options. And as the mayor has said, all options are on the table, but we really need to understand the impacts to the community of any cut to any department.
Yeah, and the other thing I wanted to say on that, just because I think the question was getting at this, is just that, policing is one part of a larger public safety strategy, right? And that is something that we're really working a lot on, because true community safety, right, has a lot of different pieces to it. We're taking a really hard look at our approach to gun violence prevention and how the city responds to gun violence, and all of just the kind of our alternative response, right? We have our care department, we have our Health 99 and Health 1 in the fire department, we have service providers that do kind of alternative response type work, we have our lead diversion program. So there's like a lot of pieces of this. It's not just SPD, and we need to make sure that that whole system, plus just all the upstream investments we're making to make sure that like people and families have the support that they need, and ideally we don't have these public safety problems to begin with, and our approach to homelessness, right? Like all of this is connected. We need to look at it holistically. It's not just about police.
Got it. Quickly, just because you brought it up with CARE, community assisted response and engagement, essentially the third lane with the police and fire in terms of emergency services here in the city of Seattle, or public safety services, I should say. There was a concern raised a couple of weeks ago, actually a state complaint from the CARE, the Protect 17, the union folks that represent CARE, who are saying we're not able to do our jobs because the union that represents the rank and file of the SPD, SPOG, is taking up all this work and they're not letting us do our jobs. I remember hearing from the chief of CARE a few months ago who was saying we can't afford to waste $1, and we've got a crew here, these CARE teams, I should say, that aren't being used that are full potential. I know that's a big question, but it is a budget question, I think, at the end of the day. How do you respond to that?
So there are some really challenging issues with the police contract, and we are working a lot with SPD and with CARE to try to make sure that that relationship and the way that we're deploying both teams to respond to 911 calls is as effective as possible. But I would say the bottom line is there's no shortage of crisis, unfortunately, in our city for our alternative responders to go to, and so I'm not worried about them not having enough work. We just need to, and we are working on just what partnerships we need to build so that there are other avenues for them to get out to calls.
Thank you for that. And folks, just one more time, I wanted to make sure I let you know, as we have just about 10 minutes or so left in our presentation here with regard to what's going on with the city budget. If you would like to send in an email, make sure you do it, mayor@seattle.gov. We'll be taking questions for the next 10 minutes or so. A big thanks to everybody who has sent in questions. There's a lot of really good ones here, and I'm really glad you're able to answer them, Mayor Wilson. So let me jump back into one of those questions here, and this is actually a little bit more related to the budget itself and how people can check it out. Alice emailed this. Hi, Katie and team, is what she asked. Can next year's budget be much more transparent, much more transparent to the public so they can understand exactly what line items the city actually spent how much money on last year, excuse me, and how next year will be different? Every year I look at the mayor's proposed budget, and every year it includes adds and cuts, but only high-level summary information. What was in the budget last year? It's all relative, but no one will tell what it's relative to. Trying to make this a more public and transparent process. Can you speak to that at all?
Yeah, I mean, maybe I can punt this one to Aly.
All right.
Yeah, I think some of the early conversations Mayor Wilson and I had as we were talking about me potentially being in this role, and a lot of the work when I did when I was on council central staff was around budget transparency. I think there are a lot of tools and information already available. I think what I can help do is better sort of highlight and promote where those tools and options are, and perhaps not in the first budget I helped the mayor produce, but have a interest in sort of making the budget book, as we call it, more accessible and transparent. So while
Sorry, what's the budget book?
Sorry, the budget book is sort of the actual, like the mayor's proposed budget comes in a budget book, and it's where you sort of describe by department what their budget is, and it, and I think that is what the person asking the question is kind of speaking to. It shows what was, what the budget was last year, what the proposal is, but it doesn't have maybe perhaps as much detail in terms of like how much it's growing, how much it's changed, that sort of thing. I have commitment and interest in doing that, and it may take a budget cycle or two to get there, but in continuing to add to our already existing tools about how we present the budget publicly is interest I have and a commitment I made to the mayor.
And there is online like a budget website where you can actually, to some extent, see
you can dig in
detail,
and
but it's hard to probably navigate if you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah. So I think there's opportunities to sort of promote and better explain how to use those tools. But my team and many of them who have been here for many years have done a good job of working with departments and all of that, of trying to get information out there and available.
Okay, sounds like a work in progress. Thank you for that. Going back to the questions, had an email come in from Ashlyn, who was asking, will you move $10 million from the Unified Care Team, as Ashlyn puts it, the department responsible for the deadly sweeps of our unhoused neighbors to shelter and services instead. An investment in a team here that I know does a lot of work on the streets. I know there's some concern about sweeps, taking people off the streets here. Talk to me about the Unified Care Team, where that money's going. Should it be moved away from that care team?
Yeah, so the Unified Care Team is out there. They do encampment removals. They also do outreach and trying to help navigate people into shelter and services. They do a lot of just cleanup, and that can be cleanup related to encampment removals, but also often they're doing cleanup just to mitigate kind of the impact of an encampment on the surrounding neighborhood without actually removing the encampment. So they kind of do a lot of different things. This is a team that has people from a lot of different departments on it. And so my hope as we are moving forward with opening new shelter sites is that we will be much more able to resolve encampments by placing people in tiny houses and in other forms of emergency housing and shelter instead of just moving people around, right? And this is like the big focus of my administration. So it is my hope that we will be able to shift the work of that team as we are opening more shelter so that is more focused on that kind of navigation into the shelter that we are opening as opposed to just removing encampments. At the same time, there is for a foreseeable future going to be a need to address encampments that are, obstructing sidewalks or that have, serious health and safety hazards. And so I don't see that we're going to be able to end the work of that team in this next budget cycle. But as much as possible, we were trying to change our response to the homelessness crisis so that we are not just moving people around our city, because we know that that is harmful for people and that is not actually a solution.
Right, but compelling, this is always the struggle that I hear about when I talk to people about homelessness. You can't compel people to move to a tiny house village. Help me out with that thought.
I mean, again, I think like the vast majority of people who are sleeping unsheltered on our streets, if we have shelter and services that are appropriate to their situation, and sometimes with a little bit of relationship building, people want something better, right? And that is the direction that we are committed to going.
Okay, thank you very much. Had another question coming in from Alex. Thanks to everybody sending in these questions to mayor@seattle.gov. We'll be with you for just about another 5 minutes or so here, so if you want to try to send in a few more, please do. Love hearing from you here. Alex is asking this: can the state help at all, such as providing public safety grants that can reduce police or fire expenses? Those are big expenses. Thank you for the question, Alex. I know the state doesn't have a ton of money either, but that's what Alex was asking. Some thoughts there.
Yeah, and I mean, state governments as well as local governments are facing very difficult budget challenges. We would love all the help we can get from the state government.
Like, so, we'll take it all.
Bring it on.
Thanks, Alex. You opened a whole new box of money here. Right.
Call the governor, call your legislators.
Right. Well, we'll see. Let me throw in another one from Alex here, because there's been a lot of talk, of course, of the World Cup coming here in June. Matches are going to be very exciting and potentially could bring in a lot of dollars here too. Alex is asking, do these budget projections also reflect possible income from FIFA, referring to the World Cup? I know that's going to be a big bump, probably a one-time bump in between June and July here, but can you talk about that impact? Because I've seen some question marks about this, like maybe the hotel stays aren't looking as good as we thought they were, and maybe this impact isn't going to be as great as we thought it might be. Some thoughts about World Cup and what's going on, how that could impact the budget?
Yeah, that's a good question. We have our office that does budget forecasting. I don't know, do you know anything about?
Yeah, so it's certainly a factor that informs the forecast, and if anyone was tuning into the most recent forecast presentation from our Office of Economic and Revenue Forecast that came out in April, they talked about how the forecast in November sort of assumed a bigger bump. So yes, it is already baked into our revenue forecast. And in April, there was a moderate adjustment downward, but a lot because of activity going on in the world and all of that. We can't be certain that we're going to get as big of a bump. I'll also just note there are also costs associated with it. So right now we're not expecting it to really outpace what we already have in our projections, but that event was factored in to the revenue forecast that we're currently balancing to.
Sales tax mainly, and hotel taxes?
Primarily sales tax and lodging tax.
Okay.
Is where we'll see that impact. And if the forecast is wrong, we will see actual revenues coming in higher. And that can help mitigate the issue, but again, that's sort of the volatility that can make it difficult to address the long-term problem.
Got it. We've got about 3 minutes left, and a few more questions are coming in. Very much thank you for sending these in, Mayor mayor@seattle.gov. We'll make sure we answer as many of these as we can. Tim, hi, Mayor Wilson and Director Pennucci. As we're working on the budget shortfall early and transparently, let me see here. Oh, has the Seattle office worked with any other major cities to identify ways to help balance the budget? Any cost-saving or progressive revenue programs being used elsewhere that we could implement here as well? Tim, thanks for the question. What do we got?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I mean, we actually have been reaching out to cities around the country to really understand the challenges that they're facing and what their solutions have been. I don't know if you want to speak to any of that. I know that there are a lot of cities that are like looking at big cuts to their fire and police departments.
Yeah. What? Any examples that you might be able to think of? What do we got out there? Who's doing what? What's working there in terms of a city around the country that's got a better budget situation?
Oh, a better budget situation.
I don't know. A rose you're looking on, maybe. I don't know.
I am not in this moment aware of a city that has a better budget situation or is out there like we have it easy and like we're growing and expanding. There are a number of cities that are rolling out their budgets now. They're on a different sort of fiscal year calendar, and we're seeing sort of more reductions and that sort of thing. And so we are talking to other cities, looking to other cities for strategies they are using and trying to share ideas. But I think right now we are all grappling with a similar issue, which is the needs and cost of providing services to our community are just really high. And so I would love to find that city that has solved it.
Okay.
And I'll just say that in general, the obvious revenue tools that cities have available to them tend to be regressive.
Yeah.
And so my understanding is that from the cities that we've talked to, the ones that are considering new revenue, it's generally
Got it.
Sales tax or something.
I've got a minute left, and Chris had one more question that feels like a good summer-upper. I'll go to you on this one. We've been talking about hard decisions about what to fund or not. Carissa, thanks for tracking the show here. It feels fairly non-committal from this discussion. Are there trade-offs that we're already planning or leaning towards, or are we still in a phase where we're still unable to state specific trade-offs? Some thoughts here to wrap up, please.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good kind of segue into like what are our next steps. So, as we mentioned, we've directed each department to model 5% and 10% cuts. And so my team has been kind of reviewing the kind of like high-level information that Aly's budget team has been bringing back to us. And then we are taking the next step, which is basically going back and having those departments like go into more depth in terms of understanding what it would look like to cut, a certain amount of some program or service, like what the impacts that would be. And so that's kind of like the process that we are in right now. So yes, it is premature for us to say like, we're going to slash this or slash this, right?
Okay.
And then at the same time, we are looking at what our revenue options are. So we're going to keep doing this work. I think we've got some more plans for how to do this in a way that we are communicating with the public as well as we make that progress. And then ultimately, I'll be transmitting a budget to council in September, and then it will be in council's hands. And it's going to be great fun.
Okay, well, we'll see how that goes. Mayor Katie Wilson, Budget Director Aly Pennucci, thank you so much for making this happen.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
I'm Brian Callanan. Thanks for joining us for this special discussion here on the Seattle Channel. See you next time. And I think...